Hey there, Geegan Executioner. I actually wanted to briefly talk about the situation with Dave Chappelle. The conversation has been going on for a good amount of time now, about 2 weeks since The Closer came out. The Closer is his latest Netflix special. It came after, I believe, Sticks and Stones. And I had heard about The Closer listening to NPR about 2 weeks ago. And from what I heard, there was a lot of controversy from individuals who were members of the LGBTQ plus community, as well as other individuals who are also in comedy. And when I listened to the clip that they showed on NPR, it was in regards to, I believe, the J.K. Rowling joke. And they had individuals call in and give their opinion. And it inspired me to go and watch the actual stand-up. So, like I said, Sticks and Stones came out several years earlier, and I thought Sticks and Stones was a lot funnier. But I did watch Closer all the way through, and I have to say that it wasn't as funny as Sticks and Stones, but it was definitely a conversation. What people are saying in regards to it being offensive is subjective, but it was definitely not what people were making it out to be. You see, The Closer was a lot like a conversation in regards to his response to people making comments about his previous stand-up. And towards the latter half, I shouldn't even say latter half, I would say the last half hour of the special is not as funny because he's telling a story. And that story is in regards to a friend of his, and a woman named Daphne, who's also a comedian, and she happens to be trans. And Daphne opened for him. She bombed, but then there was a dialogue between her and a heckler. And from there, she ended up just going back and forth and became this thing with Dave, the audience, and Daphne. And because Daphne ended up agreeing with Dave, a lot of people ended up attacking her online, and about 6 days later, she hurt herself to the point of no return. She self-deleted. So I listened to, like I said, watching the whole thing, I can understand where people would have issues with certain things he said, but when it came to the work of art as a whole, because you can't just take bits and pieces and argue that it's terrible. Like, I watched the whole thing. I just saw a guy with an opinion who was telling jokes. That's what I saw. And people have the right to feel how they feel. I would never take that away from anyone. What I did take away is that I feel as though many people really don't want to have conversations. They would rather just hear something, get triggered, and attack. As I said, I was listening to NPR. One of the people who called in said that you can't make jokes about anyone unless that group you're speaking of has some kind of social parity with the rest of society. And I sat down and I thought about it. And I got upset when he said that, because for me, there's no one who's of social parity, who has social access to everything except the rich, and by extension, most of individuals in society who identify as white. Groups like the Black community, the Asian community, the Hispanic Latinx community, the Arab Middle Eastern community, Asians, disabled physically or some other kind of disability, I said LGBTQ plus. Uh, but when I first started doing this, and you get the point, Muslims, Native Americans, I pretty much was able to name at least 20 groups that don't have social parity. If you did that with all of comedy and all content creators in comedy, you probably would only be able to talk about white people, rich people, and politics. I think that's the only options that you would have. Now, here's the thing. If you don't think a joke is funny, that's fine. I think the issue here isn't so much that they're critiquing his jokes. I feel like people are critiquing Dave's opinion, and they want his opinion to mold and shape to fit a certain narrative. But Dave Chappelle has never been one to fit anyone's narrative. I mean, if that were the case, then he would have never have turned away from the $50 million for the Chapelle show. And he says that in his special. He says he's having a conversation with a woman who literally followed him around in the mall and then outside to his car. Wait, I think I'm mixing up two jokes. But pretty much he says, he makes a comment, who do you think you are? And he says, I'm the guy who was on a bus to $50 million, and I got off that bus and I walked. So we're talking about somebody who's not defined by this trying to make certain people or certain groups or certain corporations happy. And when I sit down and I think about it, my whole thing is that people are unable or maybe unwilling to have dialogue with someone who disagrees with them. And all you have to do is agree to disagree. You don't have to go out of your way to try to agree if you don't want to. You can have your opinion, you can have your values, you can have your beliefs, and you can just move on. And just accept that, there's different ideologies besides my own. Now, here's the thing. What I have issue with is that there are quite a few people in the country who share that opinion with Dave, regardless of political affiliation or anything else. I guess because maybe Dave is a celebrity and he's a comedian, that he's supposed to agree, or people feel like he's supposed to agree. But I don't think he has to. Oh goodness. It's like people want conformity so bad because I guess conformity makes people comfortable, and comfort is worth more than having a healthy disagreement. Now, I also thought it was interesting that he shared the last portion of his special to his friend Daphne. And I remember someone made a comment that he's doing the same thing that white people would do to say they're not racist by showing that they have a black friend. And I found it interesting because those people who say, I'm not racist, I have a black friend, those people don't make funds for their friends' children, which is what he did. He made a fund for Daphne's, I believe, daughter. She has a daughter. A fund for her that he's going to give to her when she turns 21. When she turns 21, that he's going to hand deliver to her. And I find it interesting that so many people wanted to attack Daphne for an opinion. These same people are supposed to be considered her people. One thing that I've learned, especially in going to therapy, is that sometimes you may have to make your own village, Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be with people of blood or of race or anything, but just your own village, people who stick with you and have love for you for who you are. And those individuals were not who attacked her, those were not her village. Those weren't her people. The person who's taking care, who's going to make sure that her daughter is okay, that's her village. That's her people. And Dave is one of those people. Because I don't think anybody who was calling her who knows what really cared. But we live in a society where it doesn't matter what it is. When a person has made up in their mind that they feel a kind of way, that they think a kind of way, that they feel a kind of way, it doesn't matter if logic or evidence of the opposing view looks them dead in the face. They are going to be steadfast. They're like that donkey on that episode of on that episode of Family Guy that was saying no, Kevin Bacon wasn't in Footloose, and went on a rampage, went on a mental rampage to say no, he wasn't in it. And the guy he's arguing with, the guy he's arguing with is saying like Kevin Bacon was the star of Footloose, but that donkey was not going to change. That donkey was stubborn. And when people, like I said, have made up in their mind that they feel a kind of way, there's nothing you can do. So, Dave Chappelle recently released, don't know if it was some more footage of another stand-up he's doing, but he mentioned that he wanted to release a film concerning the life and the after effects of the murder of George Floyd. And he said a lot of investors, a lot of film companies won't touch him right now. The only place that will still deal with him is Netflix. And he's saying, I want to have this conversation with the LGBTQ plus community on several conditions. And then he makes a joke. You can go look it up yourself. But some people are saying he's backtracking. Some people are saying he's trying to have dialogue, or he's just going back and forth for attention. I say it could be both. I guess it depends. Because he did mention, I don't know if this person, the person he told a joke about in that video is a trans person or not, but I think it all depends on how you view it. I would say it might be a little bit of both, because it is still good promotion for him. And I think maybe he truly does want to have that dialogue, but maybe he just doesn't, I don't know. I really don't. Maybe he wants to have the dialogue, and maybe he wants to promote himself. Maybe he wants to tell jokes, but feels like if you're going to do all of this, I don't want to do it anymore, but I still want to have the dialogue. I guess, like I said, it could be both. But one of the things that people don't seem to get is that Dave Chappelle has the support of his fans. And the fans, whether they're laughing or not, they have his support because of what he represents. And he represents the person who's just not going to let any corporation, any person, any group, any social norm, anything stop him. And that's why he's had support for so long, because he could have ended his career by not going back to the Chapelle show. He went back to, and he mentions this in the closer, he went back to doing comedy clubs. And then next thing you know, he's doing comedy in bigger theaters again. He's doing comedy in stadiums again. He's selling out Radio City Music Hall again. He's getting Netflix specials. I mean, after a certain point, people have to realize that Dave is going to be Dave. You can take it or leave it. Well, there, Geek and Executioner. See you later.